that concept of preparedness is sometimes mocked a lot in the media and by people. If you don't have your life in order, then you're kind of in a tough spot.
This is Mind for Survival with your host, Brian Duff.
Hi, everyone, and thank you for listening to another week here on the Mind for Survival. We have a great episode for you today because today I'm talking with Matthew Fulkerson of Atlas AD Astra, and AD Astra means to the stars, Missile Silo Adventure Resort and Educational Center for Space Habitat Studies. That's a lot. And in short, Matthew is the owner of an Atlas F nuclear missile silo, and he's here to talk about it. And I must say, as a person who has always dreamed of having my own bunker someday, this episode is going to be a blast for me. Hopefully not a nuclear blast. Please head over to the Mind for Survival YouTube channel and hit the subscribe button. With that, we're making the push to get to our first 100 YouTube subscribers and need your help to make that happen. So please head on over there and hit the subscribe button, because it will really help out the channel. It will help out the Mind for Survival, and I really appreciate it. And with that, let's get into this episode with Matthew Fulkerson and talk about everything missile silos. Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to another week here on the Mind for Survival. We have a great episode for you today because today I'm talking with Matthew Fulkerson of Atlas AD Astra, Missile Silo Adventure Resort and Educational Center for Space Habitat Studies. And AD Astra means to the stars. In short, Matthew is the owner of an Atlas F nuclear missile silo, and he's here to talk about it. And I have to say, as a person who's always dreamed of having a bunker and all that kind of stuff, I've had an infatuation with missile silos for forever. So I don't know, it was probably a couple years ago now, Matthew friended me on Facebook, and I was like, wow, this guy actually has a missile silo. How awesome is that? So this episode is going to be a blast for me. So I'm really stoked to be getting into this. So Matthew, dude, you own a nuclear missile silo, or at least it had a nuclear missile in it at one time. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I feel really blessed to have it. It's a really awesome endeavor.
How did you, like I said, I've always been fascinated with them maybe it goes back to, I don't know, being a child during the Cold War somewhat and doing, nuclear blast drills and seeing these things. And then later on when people were actually like, oh, hey, you could buy this, I would have never thought at one time that you could buy a used missile silo, and then there it is. And then here you are. So I'm really stoked about that. I'm going to probably nerd out a little bit in this episode over it. So.
You have to go through those duck and cover days. It was a very tense time in human history, right? Yeah. The Cold War, thinking at any moment. The rocket program was really developed to be a deterrent to nuclear war. The concept was if you launch on us, we launch on you, and nobody wins, right? Mutually assured destruction. And right. It's a path we didn't want to go down. It seems counterintuitive to build up your nuclear arsenal, but we need to demonstrate that we were strong enough to protect ourselves, so nobody would attack. So
yeah, it's pretty amazing, man. You mentioned those nuclear cover drills. I remember even as a kid, they would have you get down and lay under your desk and open your mouth and cover your head, and I was like, is this really going to work?
Yeah, to think a little cinder block building is going to protect you was not, it gave some sort of sense of, okay, at least we have a plan, but whether that would actually work or not, I don't know.
So now you grew up in Kansas, right? And that's how I read your story about you kind of stumbling on your first nuclear missile silo when you were 10. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So I was hiking along through the Flint Hills of Kansas, just outside of Topeka. And all of a sudden, me and my friend, we came across this paved road in the middle of nowhere, high security chain link fence, barbed wire on top. And, the sort of all what is this? The gate was open. The place looked abandoned. So we followed the road in, and it went underground into a big bunker. You see a huge 47-ton blast door that would move to the side, and a they would have backed the missile in, and
Oh, wow.
the missile would have been stored horizontally. This was an Atlas E. You had a 400-ton door over the top that would move to the side. A crane would erect it, and then it would launch. And so, but of course, we had no idea what this was. Saw a personnel entrance to the side with a big blast door and tried the handle, and it opened. And so, saw another blast door behind it and a tunnel leading into darkness. And we got to the end of the tunnel, and then it's sort of all like more blast doors, more tunnel, and decided I had to come back with a flashlight to properly explore, you know. We felt like we were in an Indiana Jones movie, like, who finds this? Came back the next day and met the owner, and he was a retired school teacher who was fixing up this place into his underground home.
Oh, wow.
And he was right in the process of like building in a second floor to double his square footage, putting in sheetrock and painting the place. And so over the years, I saw it develop out into like an underground mansion. Here, let me turn that off.
No worries.
So he called it Subterra Castle. He built castle towers above the escape hatch so he could climb up and look out over the land. I helped with some stonework on the castle towers. And, he's been featured on National Geographic, Home and Garden Network, even Oprah. And a lot of people have been interested in, seeing how these places can be converted into homes or businesses or a variety of different things. So,
and now that was an Atlas E, right? And yours is an Atlas F, correct?
Yeah. So the Atlas F was the next generation, where it's a vertical silo that goes down 176 feet deep.
Oh, wow.
And then, so you had blast doors that would open up, elevator would lift the rocket to the surface, and then it would launch off. So
it didn't launch from down below. They would actually lift it up and then launch it when it got out of this. Because now, is the tube it's in, is that called the silo, right?
Yes.
Okay. So they would elevate that up and then it would launch once it got to the surface, or how would that work?
Yeah, that's right. So it was already fueled with kerosene, and then you would put in the last fuel mixture, which was liquid oxygen.
Okay.
And of course, that had to be stored in cryogenic chambers at an extreme cold temperature. And so that's the reason why it was the last part that was loaded. And then they could launch off that rocket. And we had about a 30-minute window if we saw that the Soviets were attacking us, for us to get our birds up in the sky. And they could launch these in about 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't know if that's pretty cool. I guess it's pretty... I guess it works for the nuclear missile game, but So you met the owner of the Subterra Castle, and that just kind of started the ball rolling with you. That hey, I want to.
Well, years later, I ended up revisiting him, and then I started working together with him with the consulting of acquisition and sales of these different missile bases. You see, people kept reaching out to him and saying, how can I own a missile base too? So he started a small business called 20th Century Castles. He saw these, it's like the modern day equivalent of the castle of old, right? Built by the government and military as a fortified structure. And over the years, I have been in and out of several different missile bases, communication bunkers, and other underground DoD facilities. And in fact, I'm trying to sell one in Nebraska right now. That's about 60,000 square feet of space. I mean, it is one of the largest bunkers I've been in. Last winter, I was working on cleaning that place up and painting it and making it nice. So,
what kind of bunker is that?
It's a communications bunker that AT&T and the military used. It was a ground entry point for Operation Looking Glass, where we had communications from Pentagon, Joint Chiefs of Staff, all of that could go and communication could go up to the planes with the nuke codes up in the sky and such. So,
gotcha. Now you mentioned nuclear missile silos, communication bunkers. what other kind of underground facilities are out there that, that maybe come up for sale from time to time?
Yeah. Well, one of the coolest ones I've been in, it's about 2.3 million square feet of space that
Holy cow.
out into it started out as a limestone mine, and then it was converted into an army storage depot. So they stored everything from food to Humvees, a variety of equipment that was stored in this old limestone mine that had been quarried out back for doing the railroad back in the day, actually. Getting all the solid rock bed down for the railroad. But
that's a pretty neat history, man. It sounds like they, yeah. So, and that was, you said, it was 1 million square feet?
2.3 million square feet of space.
2.3 million square feet.
I was lost driving the electric golf cart around inside. So
I bet. And were they selling that?
Yeah. The military had already let go of it. It was sold at a government auction, and and the guy who had it, he had fixed it up. He was doing, custom car storage, and it had a variety of different businesses kind of going on inside. And but then I think he sold it to an IT company. So,
oh wow. So he was using it, I guess it's climate control, right? Like having everything down there.
That's the great thing about being underground is it stays a pretty consistent temperature year round. So it doesn't matter if it's 110 in the summer, -10 in the winter. It's going to be in the 50s, 60s down there.
Oh, that's kind of nice, man. That's pretty cool. Now, when I was reading on your site and I was looking at, so there's the Atlas E, there's the Atlas F, and then I saw that there's the Titan 1 and Titan 2s. And one of those Titans is literally a Titan of a facility. It would look monstrous.
Yeah.
What are those?
The Atlas program was short-lived. It was our first intercontinental ballistic missile that was developed as that deterrent to war, right? So my base was operational from 61 until 65, just 4 years, and then it was already obsolete. The next generation of rocket, the Titan, was put into play. And so remember, my rocket had to raise to the surface before it could launch.
Yeah.
The Titan and Titan 2, it just had a door that slid to the side, and the rocket could be hot launched from inside of the silo. So it was protected and a faster operating system, which just made the Atlas obsolete. So,
oh, okay, wow, and yeah, I guess that would make it launch a lot faster without having to raise it to the surface. Now, you're at your location. You have the silo actually for where they stored the missile. Then you have the launch control center and obviously the above ground stuff. Do you live in the silo? Do you live in the launch control center? How does all that work?
No, currently I just built a little monolithic dome. I'm still finishing it out.
Oh, okay.
Right now. So this is where I live with my dogs on the property. What I did, I like the idea of keeping things kind of eco-friendly, and so for building this place, excavate a circle 30-foot in diameter, put down rebar, poured a foundation, attached an airform, which I inflated. It created that dome shape, and then tied in all the rebar and sprayed on layer after layer of concrete, insulated foam, and mixed something to stucco it all. But it's about 700 square feet of space. It's perfect for me and the dogs living here on the property. But I'm fixing up the former launch control center to become an Airbnb where guests can stay underground. And also the educational center for space habitat studies. So, yeah, my goal is to really bring kind of the educational aspect into tourism as well. So.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Now, are you self-taught? You make building the dome, and I saw your dome. I didn't know that was where you're living. It's pretty cool. You make building the dome sound so easy. I just threw in some rebar, drew out my circle and did all this. Did you do it yourself or?
So I had a guy who has built domes before give me all the advice, and he came with all the equipment, like the pump to be able to spray the concrete on, and he had a foam machine to be able to spray on all the foam and such. So, did a lot of the work myself, like tying in all the rebar. So, and it was a learning experience for me. This is something I've never done before. If I build more domes on this property for guests to stay in also, then it'll probably go a lot quicker and a lot. And now that I know what I'm doing,
it kind of looked like Luke Skywalker's house a little bit from Tatooine, right?
I get that from people. A lot of people say that, and the dome structure, it's really solid. It's rated to be earthquake-proof, fire-proof, tornado-proof. Of course, I live in Tornado Alley, so that's always a risk. But no, the idea of I'm going to backfill a bunch of dirt around it as well to create more insulation. But really, I was able to cool this off in the summertime with just a window unit. And I just have a little propane heater in here right now, and it keeps it nice, plenty warm in the winter so far. So
that concrete, it's kind of like I've looked at the ICF homes. I don't know if you've checked out ICF, integrated concrete forms. So it kind of sounds similar to that in that you have a big thermal mass that just of insulation around you with all that concrete.
That's right. And so if you can keep that, if you can keep it kind of warm, it'll continue radiating that heat. It's all about that thermal mass. Same thing with underground in the bunker.
Right. Now, when you when you got your how did you get your missile silo? What's the process of buying a missile silo or something like that? Is it just an auction? Are there a lot of people that go in on this? How does that work?
Okay, so these missile bases, they were decommissioned back in the 60s. So most of them are in private hands. First dibs would have gone to like a government entity, say like the local city of Wilson where I live. They didn't really need the bunker itself, but they took the diesel generators off of this facility that powered the place and used them to power the city. But now, so if it doesn't, if nobody wants it, then either it'll go up on a public auction or it may revert back to the original landowner, depending on the situation. So I'm the third private owner since the military let go of it.
Wow.
So when I approached the owner to see if he wanted to sell, I was just going to try and market it online and, take some photographs, video, and see if I could sell it. But then I fell in love with this property. It just has fantastic views. It's close to Lake Wilson, one of the largest, cleanest lakes in the state. And it has all sorts of recreation around there, mountain biking. There's over 20 miles of single track trails. And so it's kind of a fun area anyways. And then with it being so close to I-70, I thought this is a hidden gem for tourists because millions of people drive by it every day and they have no idea it's here. So I'm just trying to get the word out that I actually exist now.
Oh, yeah, I know. Well, you're doing a good job on that, man. I see you on Facebook a lot posting stuff. And I was, I know that you've been on the local news back there and all that. So it seems like you're getting ahead of steam and you're building an RV park on it too, right? Camping and RV park. That's
right. So in starting out before I had the renovations finished for the bunker, I need to figure out how am I going to be able to fund this place to have it renovated because I don't have a bunch of money or anything like that. So I got it all cleaned up to a point where I felt like it was safe enough for me to give tours, and then I opened it up as a campground. So I've had about 1,000 guests so far since I've opened it up as a campground. RVs, van life, tent campers, people sleeping in hammocks or just their car. But and I've been getting 5-star reviews from everybody. Everybody loves the place. So
that's awesome. That's great. Do they require a lot? So when you first get it, now you're the third owner. Are they a mess? Are they what kind of shape are they in?
Yeah, so my place was a complete mess. So the original infrastructure, like the walls and everything, were just falling apart. So it was pretty creepy going in there the first time.
Yeah.
Because there was hardly any light. Asbestos floor tile peeling up off the floor, lead-based paint falling off the metal.
Oh, wow.
I started out with ripping all of the sheetrock off and hauling everything upstairs and hoping to use the original floor plan with the studs, but it all still had a pungent smell of mold. So without air handling for 50 years, unfortunately that got in there. And so I ended up gunning out everything down to just the metal and concrete. And then power washed the entire place, sandblasted all the metal, repainted everything, and put new studs up for walls, ran electrical wires for that. I'm trying to figure out the plumbing right now. And just installed a bar yesterday with my father. My father and I, we've done custom woodworking together for years. And so have a new kitchen and bar for the Airbnb.
So you've gutted the entire place. Like, that's no small feat.
So from time to time, I have gotten assistance from friends and family. I have one guy, really cool guy. His name is James. Randomly, he showed up one day, and I gave him a tour. And he said, "Matthew, this is a big project. Do you need some help?" And I go, "Man, I can't afford to pay myself. I won't be able to hire you." He goes, "No, it's no big deal. I own a construction company. I have all the tools you would need, from, skid steer to, a welder, all that sort of stuff." And I'm all like, "Well, don't offer unless you mean it, because I may take you out of this." And next weekend, I was driving down 2 hours. I lived 2 hours away, so I was coming down for the weekend to work. And he comes over. He's all like, "What do you need done?" And I said, "Well, up there, you see all the ductwork? That all needs to come out. I'm going to have a whole new floor plan, and there's probably mold in it anyway. So if you could cut in sections that I can carry up the stairs, that would be a huge help." And he just climbed up on the ladder, started chopping away, and just having one extra guy made such a huge difference. So, yeah.
Oh, I bet.
But working on the plumbing now. One of the holdups is I'm putting in a gray water system. There's a company called Hydroloop Systems based out of Holland. And a few years back, they won all sorts of awards for Best Startup of the Year, Best Sustainable Company, Best of the Best over at CES, Consumer Electronics Show.
Right, in Vegas.
Yeah, I reached out to the founder of their company, and I had their product shipped over here. Unfortunately, it got damaged during shipping, so they're sending over a technician who's going to help me repair it and get everything set up properly. So once the plumbing is finished, then the Airbnb is ready for people to start staying in.
Nice. Now, with the gray water, will that have a holding tank, or are you running that outside to a field, or what are you doing with the gray water?
Yeah. So the way that it works is water from your showers and sinks and stuff like that, they flow into this gray water system, which purifies it and, makes sure that it's nice and clean, and it flows back in to things like your washing machine or your toilet or your gardens and such. Okay. And so, and then, of course, after it goes to the toilet, it goes into the black water system, which goes to the septic outside. So,
So you're on septic then?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Yeah, because I've seen, I was researching Earthships for a while. And I know a lot of those, they have their greenhouse in the front of the Earthship, and that they use the gray water to recycle into that as well. So how'd your injury from, I saw that you kind of blasted yourself with the sandblaster. You tripped over a hose or something like that?
Yeah, first day. I've never worked a sandblaster before. And so I was learning, figuring it all out. And so you put on this suit as a hose with your fresh air coming into it.
Right.
And you're looking through, this lens, and it's all dark in there for the most part. I mean, there's still light, but yeah, once you start blasting and that sand and dust and everything goes up, you can't see very well. And I tripped over the hose, and as I fell down, it sliced right through my hand. And I was wearing gloves, but of course, where the gloves and the suit meet, there's just that opening. And of course, that's where it had to cut me. So it all healed. It was just, I've had worse road rash from wrecking my skateboard or motorcycle.
Yeah, right. Are there challenges? So are there challenges that you faced that when you bought it, you didn't you never thought of, like, to just all of a sudden it's like, where'd this come from?
Yeah. Here at the beginning, it's mainly just been demo was the biggest challenge of trying to haul everything out, because, you had 200 men who built this place, and I'm just one man trying to disassemble it. So, but no, going down there, hauling everything up the stairs and recycling all the metal, throwing away all the trash, using all the wood and staying around the campfire. It's been quite a process. And for the most part, it's just been me and my dogs. And, but each and every day I try and make more progress. And so went from the demo side to now the construction side. And I almost have the top floor done. And then I'll be working on the lower level, fixing that up over the winter. And I hope to have that done by spring.
Now, when you demo stuff and you haul it out, like if it's at the bottom of the silo, are you hand jamming that up? Do you have a winch? How do you, because it's just is it a staircase or a ladder to get down there?
I'm not really working with the silo itself.
Oh, okay.
I'm working with the launch control center. So at the very bottom of the launch control center, you're about 60 feet underground.
Oh, wow.
So it's just a lot of stairs. So
now, with everything you're doing, is there, because I imagine a missile silo, launch control center, the whole facility isn't something that, a lot of people have dealt with. Is there a permitting process that you have to go through, for anything? Because I could see, if you go to the local county or whatever, and it's like, I'm building a house, that's one thing. But hey, I have this missile silo I'm working on, it might be a little different for them.
Yeah, for the most part, the county is really hands-free with stuff going out in the countryside. Basically, they want to make sure that you're doing it safe, and they want to, see it when it's all done. But I haven't had any sort of permitting issues with them.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Now, kind of moving back to the purchasing of silos. And I guess most of them, like you said, are now owned by private citizens. What does a communication bunker or a silo complex, and I guess it has a range. What could somebody, if they want to get into something, would they expect just the upfront cost to get into one?
So like a raw site like mine, when I bought it, nothing fixed up or clean or done or anything like that. That can easily go for around $300,000. And then when you start getting them all fixed up or even at least all of the demo done and maybe someone comes in and cleans everything up and leaves it kind of an open floor plan for you to figure out, that can be in the $600,000 range. And then if you get one completely fixed up and nice, and that can go even higher. So I'm seeing a variety of different missile bases that have already been fixed up and sold. My friend Ed, who fixed up Subterra Castle, originally when he bought that place, he got it for like $40,000. But this was in like the 80s he bought it. Okay. But when he fixed it up and finally sold it, now that he was in his 70s, he had, really kind of didn't feel like he could manage it on his own anymore. So
Sure.
he was able to sell it for over $1 million. So it
Wow.
paid off for him in the end to, step away. But
Now, is it typically like a cash buy? Because I mean, I don't know. It seems like trying to go to like a home lender, or is it mostly a cash buy, private sale kind of thing?
oftentimes it is that way. Most lenders really don't. There aren't a lot of comparables and such.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's hard for them to really know what the value is.
Yeah.
But, so take, for instance, it cost $12.8 million to build my facility back in 1959, $60. So
Right.
to build this place today would be over a $200 million project just to build that infrastructure, right?
Oh, wow.
To be able to pick up a site like that costs millions of taxpayer dollars for, $300,000 is actually a steal of a deal. Because you have all a multi-million-dollar head start on anything that you want to build inside of it.
And I assume it's just a buyer to buy, buyer to seller process, right? When you contact them, is there I can't imagine that Ed that started Subterra, and it sounds like you've been around to some other places. Is there like a network of like, I don't know, it seems like of people who own missile bases and communication bunkers, like where you're all kind of in touch with each other?
Yeah. We have our own Facebook page, our Facebook that we talk to about different stuff sometimes. And I was doing a road trip through Texas, and so I was staying at Dive Valhalla. This guy has turned his missile silo full of water into a scuba diving center. And,
oh, wow.
And you can stay underground in the launch control center also. And
that's neat.
So I was staying there for the night, and he ended up calling up all the other missile base owners in that region. So with the Atlas F series, there were squadrons of 12 missile bases. So around Salina, Kansas, where I'm at, there were 12 different missile bases. I was site number 8. So when I went down to visit him, we all went out for steaks and sat around sharing stories about what these guys have gone through and trying to fix up their sites and such. It's really fun to.
Oh, that's great. Little community.
Get knowledge off of these other missile base owners. So.
Yeah, oh, that's pretty awesome. Has anybody that was ever stationed at your site come by and like, oh, I was here when it was operational?
Yeah, I had an electrician come by, and so his role was anytime there was a maintenance issue. Him, of course, everything is sensors with wiring and such, and so he would have to make sure that it wasn't just an electrical issue, right?
Right,
and or it's a real problem going on, and then the maintenance guy would fix whatever problem was happening.
Yeah.
So he would get flown in to different sites or had to drive out to different sites anytime there were problems going on. So interesting stories from him.
Yeah, I imagine it must, because I was, one of the guys in my Facebook group posted it was an article about how they're refurbishing a bunch of the old missile sites that are still in use and trying to, more modernize them. And they showed these 2 women, I guess they call them missileers, that were down doing their thing down there. And it was like, wow, that would have been amazing, kind of a interesting profession to be sitting there in this silo, waiting for the word or the buzzer or whatever it was.
Yeah, kind of a stressful time too.
Sure.
Because you realize that the consequences of launching this missile. That's one of the reasons why the missileers at that time, they didn't even know the coordinates where it was going to be going. That way there would be no hesitation in following an order if given, right? Because if you knew that you were launching specifically on Moscow and you're going to kill, over 1 million people, then you may, second guess the chain of command and not do what you're told to do. So they want to actually know some of the coordinates with this stuff.
Yeah. Wow. That's interesting. That's such a big Ooh, that's a. I guess it's kind of like when they, in places that used to do the firing squad, or maybe there's still. I think Utah still does it, where they put one of the people in the firing squad doesn't have a bullet, so that way everybody's kind of like, maybe it's not me now. Some of the So you mentioned that there was a lot of that you had a lot of asbestos in there, and there was a lot of lead paint. So was it difficult to mitigate all that?
Well, fortunately, asbestos floor tile, it's in a solid form. And so really asbestos, the major issue is if it is, going airborne and stuff like that. The simple process of disposing of stuff like that, you double bag it and make sure it's disposed of properly. And of course, I'm wearing PPE, the right equipment and such. I'm wearing a breathing apparatus and such. When it came to lead-based paint, I tried to mitigate that as much as possible by power washing off the majority of it first.
Yeah.
So once again, it won't go dust and airborne as much. Mm-hmm. And then when I was sandblasting, I'm in a contained suit. So,
yeah, okay. And one Jacqueline Schmidt, my Facebook group, she asked, with it being built below ground, do you have a problem with flooding or anything?
No, though, not really. So there was one instance where water was getting in through some conduit.
Okay.
And I found where that conduit went, opened up a manhole, and so the water had filled up to where the conduit was and then was flowing right into the bunker. And I just put in like a little submersible pump, cleaned that all out, and haven't really had that as an issue anymore. But the water table itself is well below where the actual launch control center is.
Now, is that how do they build it like that? Is that do they do that when they design? Is that part of the design process, or were you just kind of fortunate that that's what you ended up with?
They built it on top of a hill, and so it is at a higher elevation. But I mean, in some missile bases, like in Oklahoma, the water table is just so high that that was a constant issue of having to pump the
water out.
Would pump that water out. So, so really, when they decommissioned my missile base, a salvage team came and took all the infrastructure that held the missile in place out of the silo. So originally there were 8 floors. It was a crib that held the missile in place. Okay. And all of that was removed. They filled up the bottom with water and they left the doors open on purpose. That way, when spy satellites went overhead, they could see the reflection of the water and verify that it was a decommissioned base. So it wouldn't be a target anymore. So now that water level is pretty much leveled out where the water table is. So you would have naturally had some water seepage coming through the concrete walls, even though they're over 3 foot thick down there. And so they had a submersible pump that would pump that water out to a holding pond on the property. And actually, I put my dome right next to that holding pond. So,
oh wow! So is there still water down at the bottom of the silo itself?
Yeah, I estimate there's between 60 and 70 feet of water down there currently.
Oh, holy cow. Okay. And it was 134 feet deep. So wow.
It's probably about 1.3 million gallons of water down there.
That's a big pump you're going to need on that one. I mean, is that in your future plans to, like, once you get the launch control center done and everything going, to start working on the silo itself?
Yeah. Ultimately, that is part of my future plan. So in creating this as an educational center for space habitat studies, I see if we're going to want to have, say, like a space base on the moon, space is one of the fastest growing industries in the world today. You have major players like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk and billionaires like Richard Branson, all building their own space programs. But, India just landed a rocket on the moon. Russia wrecked one earlier. China has landed one there. And we're looking at sending men and women there next year and having a permanent presence on the moon and trying to launch off to other planets like Mars, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you want to live up where there are no natural resources to live off of, you need to develop your habitat so it can produce fresh food, clean air, pure water, consistent energy to keep everything running, health, medical, communications, all integrated in. That way, if supply missions from Earth ever stop coming, you could live up there indefinitely, right?
Yeah.
And so it's survival to like even a little more difficult when you don't have, an atmosphere and oxygen and everything like that. So it's going to be interesting for the first people who are going up there and trying to set everything up. But I think if we can solve these problems for space, we can solve them for living here on this planet, no matter what comes our way. Global climate change, war, natural disasters, all of it, we are smart enough to overcome, I believe.
Yeah,
so
and I like that.
Sort of things I want to feature at my place.
How do you plan on doing that?
So take, for instance, as I'm renovating this place right now, I plan on putting in for food an aquaponics system. Okay. It's where you take nutrient-rich water from fish, and then you flow it into hydroponic grow beds. So the roots of the plants suck up the nutrients. It filters the water, and then all that water goes back clean to the fish. So it's a closed-loop system that conserves your water consumption. And using the red and blue spectrum of light, you can grow indoors year-round with LEDs and keep it very efficient.
That's awesome.
So looking at trying to integrate in clean energy sources. I live in the wind belt of America. There's a 250 megawatt wind farm here. And in talking to the wind farm, I'm trying to figure out how to feature, new wind technologies on my property. And they told me they also work with solar and hydrogen. And so hydrogen is pretty interesting.
That's interesting.
Because, we've found that there's water on the moon.
Right.
So there are ice caps, there's water up there. And so if you break water down, you get oxygen and hydrogen. So you have an oxygen source for living in space and a fuel source for powering your place or launching off to other planets, right? Mm-hmm. So I would love to be able to feature new innovative technologies like that can, take advantage of the natural resources.
How far along, do you know how far along they are on using hydrogen? I mean, I know, you look back to some of the old blimps back in the day, but to have it really as a good, sustainable source like you're talking about?
I think the thing that people complain about is the amount of energy that it takes for electrolysis to break that down. You end up using more energy than you actually gain from the hydrogen itself. So, but I think all of that will probably be solved here in the next few years as well, if it's not already. Sometimes technologies are just sat on until the right point. Yeah,
no, I agree with that. And like you said, between, especially with Elon Musk, what he's doing right now and everything he's ramping up, and Jeff Bezos, obviously, and Richard Branson, and it seems like everybody's going for it. That I sometimes wish I would have been born maybe 20 years later. I was born in the late 60s. So, been born in the late 80s or late 90s to see what's coming, because that space race, getting out, it seems like it's getting so much closer, maybe putting people on Mars and everything would be amazing.
Yeah. The space industry as a whole is looking to grow, tremendously in the next few years. So right now, it's, from my understanding, it's about a $400 billion industry globally. And that by 2030, they're expecting for it to be between $1 and $3 trillion industry. So more and more money is being funneled into solving some of these problems for not just, getting off of Earth, but how to survive and live when you get off Earth, right? So life support systems and everything.
Yeah, that's the trick, right?
Yeah, right. And so that's what I want to do, is be able to feature those sort of prototypes or creations that people have, feature them at my place so that, the public can start integrating it into our lives today, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Start getting it into their head and think about it more. I mean, there's a lot out there, a lot of potential coming now. So with your silo, are you able to open up the silo like where the missile used to go, would come out of and all that? Or is that something that's static now?
So the blast doors that would have opened up, you had large hydraulic rams that would open and close those doors. And those were removed when they decommissioned the base. And actually, I heard a story, evidently when they let those doors slam shut, it created such a percussion, it blew out the windows in the house about a half mile away. So, but no, I have a couple friends who have fixed up their refurbished the hydraulic rams and can actually open their doors. So, but those doors were 3 foot thick, 75 tons each. So, pretty major.
Now, on the launch control center, is the whole launch control center underground as well?
Yes.
Okay.
So the launch control center is, at its deepest, about 60 feet underground. So.
And how do you access that? Is it through a staircase? Is it through elevator? Right. What do you?
So no elevator for the launch control center for personnel. I wish there was. It would make it 80 quiet, but no, just the staircase and the escape hatch to get out.
Okay. Well, is the escape hatch like a ladder just in case something happens? You can exit it.
Yeah, that's right. So originally, there was a shaft that went to the surface, and that's where your ladder is to get up to the top. But that would have been filled with 4 tons of sand. And that would protect from the overpressures of an explosion on the surface from going down and killing everyone underground, right?
Right.
So inside, there's a handle that you pull that's away from the door. The doors would open up, all the sand would drop down, and then you could climb up the ladder to get to the surface. So,
oh, that's pretty interesting. Wow. Okay. Now, so I guess you can have that. It's a pretty secure facility still to this day, though. I mean, it sounds like it's pretty tough and resistant for people to get into. If you're inside and you want to lock everything up, it sounds like it's a pretty hardened facility still.
Yeah. No one could easily get into it. Nothing's possible, but yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it was meant to be a safe, secure bunker underground.
Right.
So this is an Air Force base, designed and built originally by the Army Corps of Engineers.
Right. Oh yeah. Okay. Army Corps of Engineers. I didn't know that they built those. Oh, that's cool. And you mentioned that the town took their generators when they first took possession of it. Are you on the local power supply there? How do you power it?
Yeah, so currently I'm on the grid, but it is my goal to get off the grid and, like I said, showcase wind, solar, hydrogen, any sort of energy source that could be like renewable or even produced by yourself. I like the idea of having maybe exercise bike that you pedal, and I don't know if you watched what was that TV show?
Gilligan's Island back in the day?
Oh, not Gilligan's Island, but there's another one where this guy, he always had to pedal on the bike and then press a button or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Shoot. No, but the idea is, why not have it to where you could have a workout equipment where you're just generating energy?
A treadmill, right?
Staying fit at the same time. So
yeah, I know they have treadmills that they're not motorized. Like you actually make the tread move by walking on them. So I imagine it wouldn't be too hard to come up with something that as you move the tread, it would generate some sort of electricity to some sort of power to put back in the system.
Yeah, I think I remember there was some father who had an incentive system for his kids who wanted to play video games that they had to pedal on the exercise bike and generate enough energy for the battery, and that would give them the amount of time that they could play or whatever.
Oh, that's pretty cool. I don't know if I would have liked that as a kid, but I mean, hey, that's one way of doing it.
Right.
And so, let me see some of the Facebook group here. Obviously, this is a preparedness Facebook group. So is there, I guess you kind of answered it by saying that they opened the blast doors and they put water in. So it's not still targeted as like an active missile silo or anything like that, right?
No. This was decommissioned back in the 60s. So if they have such horrible intel that they think that it's still operational, I don't know. That'd be a waste of but no, so I'm not concerned about being targeted by any sort of enemies.
Imagine if it came to that, like, we'd have such bigger problems anyhow, right? If
right.
they're hitting a decommissioned missile silo in Kansas, what else do we have going on?
Yeah. One thing I would like to do is make my place EMP shielded again. So originally they had metal walls that went up and around where the launch control center was, and all of that was grounded. So that in the event of a nearby nuclear strike, associated would be an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse that could fry all the electronics inside. And so that was shielded to be able to protect everything inside. Trying to figure out how to do that again, but we'll see.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool. I mean, hey, you have a pretty resilient place there. I mean, lock yourself inside 65 feet under the ground. What? So, old gray moose in my Facebook group, he asked, how do you regulate the air temps? Is it just like you said, it's just a small heater, or what do you do inside?
So currently, so I bought an HVAC system to have. The most important thing is you need to have good air movement and dehumidification so that you don't get mold growing in your place.
Right.
But basically, there's just minimal heating and cooling that needs to be done. It's a pretty nice, consistent temperature down there that's comfortable. So
yeah, okay. And so you're how at the top of your launch control center, how deep is that underground? Because the bottom, you said 64 feet or so.
So yeah, up above, you're talking about, I think that shaft that goes to the top of the bunker is probably around 13 feet or so.
Oh, okay. So you're pretty, I wonder how well that would do, just having that much earth above you would do against an EMP.
That's a good question. I'm not sure the answer on that.
Yeah, I wonder if that gives you some protection. Now, when you close up the launch control center, is it airtight in there? I mean, obviously you have air handling systems and stuff now, but is it pretty much airtight?
So yeah, originally you had blast valves that could open and shut in the event of a nearby nuclear explosion. There are sensors outside that could shut the blast valve in a second and keep everything inside safe from the overpressures of that explosion from going inside through the air shaft. And so if I shut those blast valves and close the blast doors, it's pretty much sealed.
Oh, wow.
Now, they would have created a positive pressure environment in there. That way, no contaminated air could seep its way in. It's always going to be pushing air out. That makes sense.
Right. Do you still have the ability to do that?
I could once I get the HVAC all up and running properly.
Wow.
Right now, I'm just running dehumidifiers and have some fans going and during this construction phase.
Yeah, it gets pretty humid in there. And is that to control the mold or?
Right. So take, for instance, when summertime starts coming, then all of a sudden, all the coolness of the concrete is still held there. And if you get warm air coming down, it creates a lot of condensation. And but it's been that way because I haven't had any sort of air handling and things staying more consistent. Now that I'm going to be running it more on a day-to-day, operation, I don't think there'll be as much of that going on as far as the condensation.
Oh, well, that's good. Yeah, because I imagine that's well, I mean, it sounds like you had to do a lot of work to get the mold, any of the mold that might be in there out of there when you first took it over.
Yeah. Well, first gain all the contaminated stuff out, and then pressure washing the entire place, running fans, drying it all out. Yeah.
If it was sealed up, how long could you basically stay inside? I guess that would depend on your air handling, right? But
well, I mean, the Swiss have more bunkers in their country than any other country in the world, I believe. They actually made it into a citizen's right to have protected space in the event of a Cold War.
Oh, wow.
And so they would actually give funding for you to install a new bunker in old construction, or all new construction had to have bunkers associated with the build out.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so they've really learned, the processes of having, air handling. And even if the electricity goes out, you can go manual with it to bring in fresh air and have it all filtered. So if you're filtering your air, it's not necessarily going to just be stagnant, air. You can bring in new fresh stuff. So.
Okay. Now on that, has anything been done? I guess maybe this would go into the submarine realm of stuff where you're underwater, you're under the ground so long outside of sun exposure to, I don't know, to, whether it's getting artificial sunlight that actually mimics the sun and doing the things that, being in that enclosed environment would, I guess, the effects that would have on somebody.
Yeah. So one guy that I have worked with in the past, his name is Larry Hall. He ended up fixing up his missile base like mine into a 15-floor luxury condominium complex.
Oh, wow.
It's known as survivalcondo.com. You can check it out. So he thought through a lot of those different aspects of living underground for an extended period of time. He actually had one of the psychological doctors from the Mission to Mars project with NASA come out and do sort of a checklist evaluation. Everything from ceiling heights to light temperature to, the idea of having digital windows so that you could be looking out at, the ocean or the forest or even just the landscape outside. Those little things help psychologically for you not to get cabin fever and start, freaking out because it feels like normal house living. You can even look outside is what it feels like. So there are ways to do that, and you could even have your lighting start coming up when the sun is coming up, and have it go down when the sun is going down to mimic those sort of time changes and such.
Does he have people living full time in that, or is that more of, hey, if something, some craziness happens, it's a place to go to?
Yeah. So what he did was he turned 7 floors into residential units. Each floor is about 2,000 square feet of space. And then the rest are amenities. There's a movie theater, bar, rock climbing wall, indoor swimming pool, indoor firing range, gaming room. This is fun. But he takes things very seriously. He has military grade security, surgical suite, dental chair, his own pharmacy. He's growing fresh food underground with aquaponics. I mean, nice. And he even has an educational level. with K through 12 curriculum for all the kids who may be in a lockdown scenario. Some of those kids that were going to be residents were getting older, and so they were looking at doing college, curriculum as well. And
that's awesome.
It was cool. I was taking a client through to see if they wanted to buy a full floor unit. And as we walked through the education level into the library, my ex-wife, she looked around and said, "Well, Larry, I don't see any bookshelves in your library." Well, the guy who was supposed to build them couldn't get to it for another year. She goes, "I know someone who does amazing woodwork." And he looked at me and said, "Well, give me a bid." So my father and I, we built a custom library, 40 feet long, floor to ceiling, curved around the outside of the room for that project. And that's what really inspired me for developing out my place. My goal wasn't to turn it into a condo just for a few wealthy people. My thought is to open it up to the world to enjoy as like the space-themed adventure resort. But basically going off the same sort of floor plan and using him to help develop it out. He's already built one. He sold all of the units in that facility. So most of the people who live there, it's, just a backup plan. But I mean, it's like their own mini private resort that they can go to whenever they want. So take, for instance, a lot of them were mocked about it. Why are you buying a survival condo? And then when COVID hit and they actually had a place to go where they were isolated from everything else and they could exercise, watch movies, grow food, have fun, their friends were all like, "We should have bought him too, And so it's kind of interesting how that concept of preparedness is sometimes mocked a lot in the media and by people. But then when, shit actually hits the fan, if you don't have your life in order, then you're kind of in a tough spot. So, yeah.
Do you have plans for yours along that line? I mean, because you're with your launch control center and, as much as you have done, it doesn't sound like you're too far if you get the hydroponics growing from being able to lock it up and hang out to see what happens.
Yeah. And the fun part, so my background is in hotel and restaurant management.
Okay.
And so I've managed a hostel in Europe, a ski lodge in Oregon, but the campground lifestyle is where it's been at for the past few years for me. But getting into the Airbnb and opening this up for guests to be able to experience, it'll be interesting to sort of like put them through a program. This is what it would be like if you were in this sort of scenario, and educate people on how we could be living out in space or deal with problems here on Earth. So I think the educational aspect is the most exciting part of it all for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. It sounds neat. Because you're definitely in a unique position that not to provide an experience that not a lot of people have had, and there's really not, there's really no other way they're going to get it, right? And I think it's fascinating. I mean, you could teach so much out there, whether it's the Cold War and just what you've talked about here in the show today. Like, oh, well, this is what they did. This is why they had it. Here's the different silos to, like you said, you're, looking at the stars and getting out into space to, hey, if something, if the shit hits the fan, here's things to consider, and this is what this life would be like. I think it's fabulous.
Yeah, and I think that if people have their life in order now before things go south, then they're in more of a better position to be able to help others in a time of need.
Yeah.
So I've trained with FEMA with a program called CERT, Community Emergency Response Team. And they teach us that if you want to help, be a volunteer and help people in an emergency crisis scenario, you really need to have everything in your own house in order. Because if you're going out there trying to help others, and in the back of your mind, you're going, well, how is my family? How's my house? How is my dogs? Your mind doesn't focus where it needs to be at that moment. And so I think that's just a wise way of going about life is, trying to, make sure that you are going to be fine. And then out of your abundance, you can help others in a time of need.
I love that, man. That's I think that's what I think a lot preppers from years ago, and before when they were survivalists and stuff, it was a very individual thing. And now I hear that more and more. It's what I do. I have a few years worth of food, freeze dried food and everything. But my part of my joy is like, hey, I have friends that they're not the biggest into preparedness. They do a little bit here and there, but I can help them get by if things went south. Now, obviously, if there's always there's the group of people that say, well, if things went completely south and you're never having food, then you're giving away. Well, yeah, but what are the odds? What are the odds of that happening on a risk matrix where you're examining your risk and saying what's the most likely scenario? That's the farthest end scenario that you have. And so I like having the ability to be able to help my friends and family out if they need it. I don't know. It makes me feel good.
Yeah. And I mean, it's hard to be a lone wolf. We work in societies and communities, and, it takes a village, right? You really need, it's hard to do everything on your own is what I'm finding to be true.
Right.
So by being able to develop sort of that community aspect and hey, we're all in this together. We need to help each other. You become stronger and more powerful, and you can get more done. This mindset of, I'm just going to be a one-man show and try and do it on my own. I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's not easy.
I think it works right up until it doesn't, and then you don't have a fallback. And that's what the benefit of having community is, right? You have people that not only can come and depend on you, but that you can depend on them. I mean, but your dog named Buddy? Is that what I read? Yeah. So, I mean, just you and Buddy, right? Like there's a relationship there that, it makes you feel good, makes you do stuff. And if you didn't take care of Buddy, well, then that relationship goes south. And then, then there's your friends and family. Like, yeah, there's a lot to be said for making sure. And I'm big on letting people know that people define their community, right? Like I'm not being defined by a geographical boundary or what the government tells me this is your community. It's who's my community? Who do I identify as my community? And I think it's super important for people to realize that. And, if you're into preparedness, then prepare for your friends, do what you can for them too.
Yeah. Of course, the idea is that it would be great if everybody were capable of just of having their own lives in order and being able to take care of themselves. Mm-hmm. And then as everybody is working from sort of that same level, it makes the whole community stronger. So surrounding yourself with like-minded people is oftentimes important in that, and educating people, your friends and family who aren't there yet. Of course, I have friends and family who are all like, hey, if things are going to be that bad, I'd rather just die. Right? Like, well, look, most humans don't want to die. If you're put in a scenario and you can live through it, even though it's horrible conditions, whether it's a hostage situation or a Holocaust. I mean, there were people who survived through that. And even though you seem to lose all hope there for a while, guess what? They didn't give up on living. They did survive. And they afterwards, lived a full life. And, their families and their heritage has continued on. And so most people don't want to just die. And so you think of that.
That's kind of a glib off the, sort of off the cuff. I think that ends up being a little bit of an excuse of why they don't prepare, why they don't want to think about it. Like, I just want to go down with the ship and No, it's not our nature. It's not our nature. And, it'd be really terrible if you said, I just want to go down with the ship or whatever the scenario is. And then, 2 hours later, everything resolved itself and you checked out. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah. So, but once again, a lot of us do want the easy way out. We don't want to push through. I love Bear Grylls survival shows where it's showing, okay, can you make it in like the wilderness or be able to overcome these challenges, obstacles that you have inside.
Yeah.
One of the things I really want to do out on my property is build an obstacle course, similar to the military uses for training confidence in their soldiers.
Yeah.
A few years back, I competed on a TV show, American Ninja Warrior. I went as the
missile. Oh, did you really? I love that show.
Yeah. And so the whole idea of being, physically fit and capable and being able to overcome challenges and obstacles, I think it develops, that strong will and determination to succeed. And, and sure, you're going to fall. Sure, you're going to hurt yourself sometimes. But, soon, if you continue to do it, you'll get better and better and stronger and more capable. So,
yeah. And that's what, in a way, that's what preparedness is all about, right? You mentioned it earlier when we were speaking. You said, every day you go at it there with the silo. Like, I can't imagine the amount of work you have at that place. Like, I living in a 900-foot square house, like there's plenty of work to keep you busy there. I can't imagine having a deactivated nuclear missile base to work on with all the stuff that you have. But you mentioned something. You said, every day that you get up, you try to get something done. You try to do a little more, make it, improve it a little bit. And I think that speaks to the bigger thing about life, right? Try to make it a little bit better, make yourself a little better, whether it's a little bit healthier, pass on the donut, pass on the piece of, gluten powered bread for that day and do something different. Go for a walk, make it a little better.
Yeah. I agree. With all the things that I want to get accomplished, I'm kind of a dreamer. I have a lot of big dreams and big visions, but I'm also a doer. It's sort of all like, am I going to just talk a bunch of talk, or am I actually going to live this out each and every day? And being an entrepreneur isn't for everyone. Trying to tackle these projects, it's it's a challenge for sure, but it's been so rewarding, especially, being able to connect with my guests and, stay around a campfire and hear their stories about where they're from and where they're going and then share with them a little piece of history and my vision for the future. It's very rewarding.
That's awesome. Yeah, I can see that, man. I think meeting with all the people, because people are coming to your site, they're coming to your to your silo and everything there because they're interested. It's not like that's something just random. I think that very often that people are like, oh, let's go stay at the nuclear missile silo,
right?
Like they're curious about it, and so that must be a great time hanging around those campfires and showing people around and everything.
Yeah, and it ends up becoming the highlight of their trip. And, again, to talk about it with all their friends and say, I actually did this, it's one of those things that is, it may be a bucket list item for some people.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to go into like a abandoned, bunker built for the military or something.
Right. What's the best season to come to visit there?
My two favorite seasons are spring and fall. Summer is nice too because you got the lake right there. So even though it can get pretty hot here, it's you can go and cool off or whatever, or go underground and it's perfectly fine. But then of course winter. That's usually when I have my Boy Scout groups coming through. They camp every month throughout the year. So they have to deal with all seasons. And So that's when I get those sort of campers coming through. But me being so close to I-70, it's easy for, an RV to hop off the interstate and stay instead of like a KOA right next to the interstate where you got to hear traffic all night long. You're out on the countryside and you hear coyotes instead. So
that sounds like a great time, man. I think one of these days when I'm driving back and forth, I'll have to hit you up and come and camp out and hang out and see. Because it like I said at the beginning of the show, I'm a nerd for missile silos. I love looking at. I've researched them and for years, and that would be a bucket list item for me. I would be ecstatic to hang out and see a missile base complex. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I was asked years ago, why would you want to create, a resort out in the middle of nowhere, Kansas? Well, like, it's the middle of everywhere, actually. It's just a few miles from the geographical center of the continent, So it's
a good point.
A lot of people are traveling through the United States, and most of my guests haven't been from Kansas, and so it's neat.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Hey, one question I wanted to get to that I forgot earlier is if somebody wants to get into like buy a silo, a communications bunker, or something along those. I've seen like the Vivos X-Point ammunition bunkers up in North Dakota, but like with what you have going on or a communications bunker, what advice would you get them? Where would they start? How would they go about that? What would you tell them?
Well, I could help you with it, for one.
Okay.
I know quite a few missile base owners who I always reach out to see, okay, well, are you interested in selling? And if they want to sell, then I can line up a new buyer.
Okay.
But that's just been for me years of research trying to find these places and connect with the owners and then sometimes somebody buys a place and they have all full good intentions of turning it into something, and then they just don't have the time or they don't have the money. So they invest all their money into buying the place, but they don't have the money to fix it up. That's where I'm at. When I purchased the place with an investor, we ended up, tragically, he died the very next year. And so for several years, I just sat on the property. I really didn't know how to move forward without any money. And finally, I came to the realization, you know what? Nothing's going to happen out here unless you come out and start working. So in my free time, on my weekends, I would drive 2 hours. I would put up a hammock in the tree and just spend all day working, for a couple of days, and then head back home and do my regular job. And so it's taken a lot longer than, I would have wanted. If I had finances, I could have easily hired somebody else to do it and we could have knocked it out. But, so in wanting, if you or somebody else is wanting to buy a missile base, you need to kind of think through these different things. A lot of missile base owners end up getting divorced, unfortunately. But it's not for everyone also. So also consider that, for the health of your family or your relationships. It can be a consuming project, but it can also be very rewarding as well. One of my friends, he turned this Nike missile base into his underground home. He works with Corvettes and sports cars. So the elevator that could lift up the missile to the surface, he uses to drop down one of his favorite sports cars right into his home. And 5,000 square feet of space he's developed out with even a putt-putt golf course and stage concerts and a swimming pool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Well, I saw that. It looks like you have partnered with a lot of different, I think I saw different companies and stuff on this. And now I did see something, I know you sent it out a few days ago that, maybe it was a couple weeks ago now, but you had a contest going, I believe. So tell us about the contest you have going.
So along this journey, I've been very blessed Airbnb sponsored me to help fix up the place. So they had a fund called the OMG Fund. Like, oh my God, what is this?
Yeah.
And out of thousands of hosts from around the world, 100 people were chosen, and I was one of those 100. And they gave me $100,000 to help develop this place out. And all of that money has been spent, and I am now trying to raise the last like $30,000 I need to finish this all out. And so what I'm doing is a 2-night stay giveaway. For every $1 that's donated, you get 2 chances to win. So like if you donate $50, you get 100 chances to win a 2-night stay underground. And so I'm going to be announcing the winner on the 1st.
Okay.
So at the end of the year, that contest is up. And then I may start doing a monthly giveaway also, and just try and get people to want to engage and see this place develop out into an amazing resort that they can come back to year after year. And each time they come, there will be something new going on. So
that contest is still running right now. If people go in and donate, then they can still get into that.
So on my website, Atlas at Astra.com. There is a link to the GoFundMe. And, I've been gaining a little bit of traction with that with some of my past guests who are all like, yeah, it's so awesome that you're almost done, because they saw it when it was just raw and rusty and nasty, taking it through this abandoned missile base. And so I've got a lot of people saying, man, I can't wait to stay there. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. No, we'll put a link to that down to both your website and to your GoFundMe down in the show notes. So anybody wanting to come and see that. And we'll also, when I write up the podcast notes for this article, we'll put links to that in the show notes on the website too. So either on the YouTube channel, check the description, or if you're checking the podcast, go to mindforsurvival.com for this show, and we'll have those down in there. So is there any other way that people can help support your efforts and help get you over the hump and get it all built out and going?
Well, so I also have a Patreon page, and what I'm looking at doing, I've been filming a lot of content about me working and building this place out. And so what I'm looking at doing is having exclusive content that Patreon members can have access to and be able to watch the entire transformation of this place. So there's the GoFundMe and the Patreon. So I was filming with the History Channel, and got all geared up and went rappelling down into the silo to the celestial chamber. There's a tube that went up from the silo up to the surface, and you could align by the North Star to get the navigational system all correct for the rocket. Wow. And so that's right above where the water level is in the silo. And so I went rappelling down in there with a camera guy from the History Channel. And when we were down there, we were talking, and I told him my idea of doing like a series that could feature this whole build out. He goes, Matthew, what you need to do, forget these major networks. They'll hardly pay you anything. You need to do YouTube and Patreon. And so I didn't know what Patreon was at that time. And he's all like, if people believe in your project, they will donate monthly. And if you get a great following, you can have all the money you need to build your place out. And so that's what I'm trying to do, is kind of have this grassroots movement of people who want to support and see this place, get transformed and go to the next level.
That's awesome, man. I think it's a great thing what you're doing. You're living a dream. You're at the nexus of so many things between your dream and this bucket list thing for people, and as an educational center. I really like what you have going out there, and I'm really stoked.
It's an adventure for sure. Each and every day is a new cool project, and And each and every day I get to meet new people. But right now, I don't have any bookings for this month except for one Christmas tour of 20 people who are coming for like their corporate Christmas party. So
that's cool.
If you guys are looking for something to do in the middle of winter and you're cruising through, book a spot, camp here, take a tour. Those are other ways that you can support this journey. So.
All right. Well, everybody out there that's listening, hey, if you've ever wanted to see a missile base and get down there and get the information from someone who, loves it, this is, go check out Matthew's site. Again, the links will be in everywhere. Matthew, before we get going, I want to thank you so much for coming. Do you have any final words, any other links you need to put out to, for your site?
Oh, well, I guess final words are just, I like what you're doing with trying to educate people and help people along in this journey and give them resources and ideas and such. And so continue, doing that. I really believe that the whole concept of preparedness is important, if we want to make it through tough times. And so I want to be a part of that journey and continue to educate people. I would love to get on your show again and in the future, and hopefully
likewise.
Maybe it's with you actually at my site and being able to show off all the cool stuff that's going on there. So
yeah, I'd love that. You're definitely on my bucket list for taking a visit to once soon as I get things a little bit stable where I'm at. And I really love your I love your website name, the Atlas AD Astra. And so again, that's everybody. AD Astra, ADASTRA is to the stars. So atlasadastra.com. That's the place. Take a family vacation. Go out and see something unique. See a missile base. And man, if you're into preparedness, it's one of the things that you should definitely do in your lifetime. So, hey, Matthew, I really appreciate you taking the time, and we'll hang out a little bit after we get off here. But thanks for taking the time and coming on the show, man. I had a blast with you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. It's always great to be able to connect and share stories and be able to share information on how we can all, improve our lives and get to that next level. So thanks for having me on the show, and look forward to staying in contact in the future and hopefully meeting some of your viewers. And so if you saw me on this show, I will, if you tell me that you saw me on this show, I'll give you a 10% discount on your stay. So, okay.
That's awesome, man. So thanks, man. I appreciate it. Finally, everybody, if you like what you heard here, in addition to checking out Matthew's sites, please hit the subscribe button. And remember, leave us an honest 5-star rating review on whatever podcasting app you're listening to. It really helps out the show, totally pumps up the team to read your wonderful comments. So thanks for that. And with that, until next week, stay safe, secure, and prepared. And never forget, you are just one prep away from being better prepared. Bye for now.
See ya.